Double Doinkers Fantasy Football Podcast with Willie J and Nick Meyer. This week we bring you the Week 12 show. That is our picks. We take a look at some of the players on the sell list. You know how it is. We talk about the week in general. What's going on, Willie? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm tired but good. I just got a new used car, so I'm super happy. I got a Toyota Corolla, super reliable.
Love it.
It's very zippy, like very zippy. That's what stands out to me the most. The turn radius is great. The acceleration is really good. It's so smooth. And before the Toyota Corolla, I had a Ford Focus, and then I had a Jeep. And for my work, I primarily drive SUVs. So it's definitely the smallest and the zippiest car I've ever had, and I do really like it.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm glad it is zippy for you too, because I know some of these small cars, like I got a Civic that just does not have a zip at all. It's like the opposite. You go off the line and you're just like pushing down the gas, like, are you gonna go? Let's do this thing.
It almost feels like, and maybe it is, but it almost feels like my car is on cruise control because I barely have to touch the acceleration and it's just zipping around. But also the brakes are really good. Like the brakes aren't touchy; they're just it's nice and smooth, zippy.
Love that. Good stuff, man. I'm always happy to hear you got a good car, especially when you're buying cars. Because
Yeah.
I've been on the other spot where I bought a car that I definitely should not have, and it did not work out, and it was not a lot of fun. So I'm
I don't
happy to hear the other way.
I don't care for cars that much. I don't. So it's efficient. That's what makes me happy.
That's fair. I bought like a 1968 Mercedes that I thought I could upkeep, and it turns out I couldn't. I was way too broke to do that. Which you live and you learn. You make mistakes. Speaking about mistakes, I know my picks didn't do very well week 11. That was probably my worst week. One of my least favorite weeks of fantasy football that I remember in recent times, and in Raiders fandom as well. So this week, if you lost your matchup, I want you to know that you can blame that on me. You need Lamar to score a simple 10 points and he couldn't get there. You can blame that on me. You go against Josh Allen as he drops a 50-point game. You can blame that on me. You're a Raiders fan that expects competent football that is exciting or interesting to watch, even if it's a loss. You can blame that on me. Holding out hope that Aiden O'Connell can make your first or second round pick a good pick again. You can blame that on me. Speaking of blaming it on me, I do somehow feel responsible for this mess that is the Raiders. I've been a fan for a little bit over 20 years now, and I've always held out hope. It's gone. It's gone now. At least Geno Smith will be the bad guy, so I can ignore a team that isn't starting any of the rookies that drafted with the worst O-line in the league. The one that doesn't pepper any of their rookie wide receivers, instead is giving targets to Tyler Lockett. The one that has a washed Chip Kelly and the oldest head coach in football. The team that seems to be repeating the exact same mistakes that made it that they did in the early 2000s that led to 2 decades of embarrassing play that ultimately led to them leaving their state. And they're doing it again. And it's starting all over again. It's my fault for supporting this team by watching and claiming fandom. And you can blame that on me. Willie, I'm going to share with you 2 lists real quick, okay?
I'm ready.
Raiders coaches since 2002. Bill Callahan, Norv Turner, Art Shell, Lane Kiffin, Tom Cable, Hugh Jackson, Dennis Allen, Tony Sperano, which is a cool name almost, but he's a bad coach. Jack Del Rio, John Gruden, Rich Bisaccia, Josh McDaniels, Antonio Pierce, Pete Carroll, and whoever the next 16 coaches that will come after him in the next 10 years will be. Raiders QBs since 2002.
Oh boy.
Kyler Buller, Andrew Walter, Aiden O'Connell, the best. Take that for what it's worth. EJ Manuel, Matt Flynn, Charlie Fry, Marquise Tuiasosopo, Jarrett Stidham, Rick Myrer, Dante Culpepper, Josh McCown, Aaron Brooks, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jamarcus Russell, Bruce Gradkowski, Terrell Pryor, Matt McGloin, Jason Campbell, Carson Palmer, Kerry Collins, Rich Gannon, Derek Carr, and Geno Smith, and you can blame that on me.
Who were half of those guys? That's even more than I expected. Also, I did not know Lane Kiffin coached the Raiders.
Yeah, he was he has the famous Al Davis brought out a projector, like one of the old school projectors that you'd see at school that had like the light and everything. And the
Mhm.
projector was just all the reasons why Lane Kiffin was a bad coach, and then fired him the next day.
He's had a lot of success since leaving the dumpster fire, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean that was like the start of the dumpster fire. It's like, okay, so Rich Gannon broke his neck in 2002, and at that point, from then on, it has just been broken because Al Davis reached the senile point, the point that we're making fun of Jerry Jones for being at.
Yeah,
And Mark Davis is just, I'm really trying hard not to curse right now. He's just an idiot.
Mark Davis.
Mark Davis, he's just an idiot. Um and everyone was really excited about bringing Tom Brady. Like, we have a guy who knows football, right? But I'm not excited about it. I'm just going to say that at this point right now. If you look, and I'll stop this. This isn't a Raiders show for anyone who ends up watching this. This isn't a Raiders show, and I know that, so I'll stop soon. But if you look at what they're doing right now, Pete Carroll is the art shell of the new generation. Almost no one's going to understand what I mean, and that's okay. An old defensive-minded head coach who can't seem to put it all together, who thinks they can compete with a roster that they don't have.
That's like Bill Belichick at UNC this year too.
And this has happened to us before, and it led to 2 decades of awful, almost in the exact same way that is happening right now. And both the situations started with John Gruden leaving the team. He wasn't fired in either situation. On one side, he was traded, which is close enough to being fired, I guess, you know. And on the other side, yeah, he was a head coach that was traded. Figure that out, guys. And on the other end, did that happen with Sean Payton?
It did happen to Sean Payton. That was the first one that came to mind. Yeah, and
Okay.
I mean with Gruden and Payton, both of them left, a bit of dumpster fires, and then they became actually really good head coaches in good situations. So
I just, yeah, it's not going well. Okay, so I'm sure anyone who watched the Raiders game on Monday actually finally got to see them and how inept they are, because it's not just that like they're bad. We've dealt with that before. Bad is I'm not gonna say it's fine, but like bad and weirdly competitive, or at least fun to watch, because they're just the fastest dudes that ever have played football, but they can't do anything else. That's fun. This team has absolutely zero identity. There's no like pieces. Like, Brock Bowers is great.
mhm.
They don't really even know how to use him in this offense. They can't figure it out. Ashton
He's
Genty looks awesome, but they don't run the ball, so who cares?
but Brock Bowers is a Bugatti in a garage.
Here's the hard part for me, is that Brock Bowers is probably the best player we're gonna get in a long time, right? And there's almost zero chance that if this team can't figure out how to get better, that he's gonna re-sign with them. Because
Hmm.
why would you? I wouldn't if I were him. Right now, if I'm him, I'm going, okay, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. You
Yeah,
know,
if they can't figure it out next year, I feel like trading him and selling high would also be a wise decision.
but it's great because you have a GM was hired, and this is coming out. This was leaked after whatever Geno Smith's weird "blame it on me" thing, where he's talking about cars breaking down. You can blame that on me. Like, this Geno, shut up, just shut up, just shut up. Um, it's funny until it's not. You know what I mean? Like, when it's too sad that you're like crying instead of laughing. I mean, they might sound the same, but it's not the same. Anyway, the I'm losing the plot a little bit here. The GM came in, Spytech came in, and he knew they needed to do a rebuild. And then they hired Pete Carroll, who said he wanted to win now. And they've never figured it out. So if you wonder why there's no identity on this team, it's because there's not. You have a GM that is not in the same line as the head coach. Head coach didn't want to trade Jacoby Myers, doesn't want to get rid of anyone, thinks that they can win with this team. And the GM's like, we can't get rid of them.
There's there's no chance that Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly are there next year, but do you think Pete Carroll stays
I hope beyond hope that Pete Carroll just resigns.
like he did in Seattle?
Yeah, because I don't think they'll fire him. They can't fire another coach.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe they can, but I don't think they will. Because I don't
no.
think that's good either. The hard part for me is that's not really an answer. Like, you get a new coach in here, and it's not going to solve these issues.
I think best case scenario, the Raiders somehow get like an OC or a DC from like some other team that's really good. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but like they, are like the OC or DC for the Raiders for a year, and then they succeed Pete Carroll as the head coach. Because you don't want. I mean, maybe the Raiders DC could come in there, Patrick something.
Patrick Graham, but he hasn't shown enough consistently.
But you don't want Chip Kelly to be succeeding Pete Carroll. That's what I was saying.
Absolutely not.
This probably will not happen at all. But if Clint Kubiak, who's like a really, young, popular OC, if he follows Pete Carroll in a sense, not really, but sort of in a sense, from Seattle to Vegas, is OC for the Raiders next year, which he won't. But I'm just thinking hypothetically, if he was the next head coach of the Raiders, that would be something that
he could do something for sure.
Yeah.
You know who else I could actually see leaving their team this year that I wouldn't necessarily mind. And this is gonna sound nuts to anyone who has watched the Miami Dolphins, but I don't hate Mike McDaniel. I don't think that he was given a good shot, and I think maybe if the GM and him can link up, which this is a huge, gigantic golf and ifs because apparently the GM doesn't know how to link up with their head coach already. But if it could happen, I think Mike McDaniel has the opportunity to be a good coach.
Here's what's gonna happen. Oh no, it's coming to me. Wait, who is it? Oh, it's Brian Dable. He's
No, stop, because you're gonna be right, and that's gonna hurt so bad. It's gonna hurt so bad. They're gonna be like, yeah, look, Brian, he wasn't given a fair shake. Jackson Dart got hurt, and it's like, yeah, well, what about the other 5 years, and what about Dale? Okay, you're right, because it's already frustrating me.
I do want to say first, I do want to give benefit of a doubt to the Cowboys defense. One, they were playing for Marshawn Kneeland. They do have Quentin Williams now, so I think the defense is 100% on the right track for the Cowboys. I don't think they're going to be bad the rest of the season. Maybe mediocre, but I think the days of the Cowboys defense being bad this year is over. Second, and my biggest takeaway from your rant is, even though I know what he looks like, every time Mark Davis is mentioned, I like to Google what he looks like.
You should. You should, because it's ridiculous. He's a clown in a man's body.
There's a difference between having a bad haircut and it's sculpted to be. There's no way that it. Just look it up. Look it up.
He drives in a minivan to go get the same haircut from the same guy for years and years.
You can have a bad bowl cut, but that's like it. This is not a funny exaggeration. It literally looks worse than Lloyd Christmas's and Dumb and Dumber. Like tenfold, I would rather have that haircut for the rest of my life and have it Mark Davis's for a month.
Yeah, it's like Josh Hartnett in The Faculty had his hair all messed up. That's weird. I know most people aren't gonna get that one, but he did, and that haircut's way better, and he did that on purpose. Awful. Okay, we can stop talking about the Raiders. I had to rant about it. I watched that Geno Smith press conference, and I'm like, what are you? Are you being cute right now? Or are you being like, what is going on? Because this has been really bad. It hasn't been fun to watch either. I've watched bad Raiders teams, and I've been like, at least they're fun. They do weird things, and they beat teams they shouldn't beat, and they lose to the stupid teams. That's fine. But this one, 6 rush attempts for 7 yards with a long of 11.
That's crazy. And
you picked that.
He's boxed for a safety too.
You picked that guy at number 6 overall, and then you only ran him 6 times in a game against what was before this the worst rushing defense in the league.
That's really weird. I don't know. Really
weird. We'll move on though. We'll move on. Thank you, Willie, for putting up with me here. Let's go into injury news. So Thursday night game. We'll start there. New England Patriots versus the I'm spacing names. I'm gonna get back. I gotta get my head back in this game.
Jets.
So yes, against the Jets. That's why I'm spacing their name. They don't exist. Milton Williams got hurt. That is a defensive tackle for the New England Patriots. He's an important one, and this might hurt the run defense a little bit.
Yeah, he was a big free agency acquisition from the Eagles, and he's probably been their best run defender. And they've had a really, really, really good run defense, and it's a high ankle sprain, so that's not good.
Yeah, they placed him on IR, so he's going to miss at least the next 4 games. This might be good news this week if you have someone like I do, like Chase Brown. Although I think the way that they're utilizing Chase Brown is a little interesting in Cincinnati anyways. So he's more of just an extension of the passing game, it looks like.
Yeah.
But so that, bad news for the New England Patriots, although it could be for fantasy purposes good for the players on the Patriots because I don't think they could just get up to a lead if their defense gets worse.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
their defense hasn't been so good, especially not against the pass. So if they are getting a little leaky on the run, you might get into more shootouts.
Is Ramondre? Is he playing this week?
What I saw is the expectation is for him to practice this week, which I think would mean that they're angling towards him playing, but they're being a little tight-lipped about that. I would guess so, because if he
Yeah,
doesn't play this week, he should have went on IR, and uh, you can't gauge those things directly. We've seen this season a lot of players who don't go on IR, but that probably should have.
yeah,
Um, as if you have Travion and you love the explosion, you don't really want Ramondre to come back in there because why shake up a good thing? But it's gonna happen.
yeah. It looks like he's questionable. I think he had a limited practice, so it feels pretty likely. But
Mm-hmm.
it's maybe it like we've said, it probably will cap Travion's upside, but like it feels like it has to be Travion's RB1 now.
Yep. Well, I hope so. I see a lot of chatter about Vrabel being he's stubborn with his starting running back, and we've seen that in the past a little bit. But Travion just had 2 fantastic games in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and even if his role's reduced, I don't think it'll go back to where it was earlier in the season. I think it could be a 50-50 at worst. But Travion also looked a lot better at running through contact and in the pass protection, which is the things that we've heard over and over and over again that he was lacking on to start the season.
Yeah, to start the season, and he's
Mm-hmm.
gotten better clearly.
Yeah, so I do have hope that he's going to see a majority of the carries, and you think with Ramondre coming off injuries, that's what would happen too. I'm trying to figure out how much of this is me talking myself and hyping up Travion again versus the actual reality of what will happen.
This week's a good week regardless.
It's Cincinnati, so in theory, it could be a close game, but they should be able to run pretty easily. So let's move forward to Sunday. I'm going to start with the biggest news, in my opinion, is that Atlanta Falcons quarterback Michael Penix Jr. He partially tore his ACL, and he is going to be out for the season. And Drake London also had a knee injury. I don't think I've heard an update on Drake London's injury, except for it looks like he's out this week.
He is officially
Mm-hmm.
out.
And it's not great when you get officially ruled out on a Wednesday. That's not wonderful. That's usually a pretty bad sign. And the Falcons aren't going to rush him. So we're going to get Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney. We'll talk about Darnell Mooney a little bit later.
I want to go on a little mini rant here. So there's often a lot of, I would argue it's nuanced, but there's a lot of understandable backlash against drafting Michael Penix at number 8 when they had Kirk Cousins. Personally, I think the idea was maybe a little bit rich, but I really appreciate and respect the tradition of NFL past where you would draft a quarterback in the first round, let him sit for 2 or 3 years, and then start him. I think the Packers have shown that they've had great success at that. I think other teams like, the Chiefs, Mahomes and Alex Smith have had great success at that. It's not like a be all end all, doesn't always work, but it's often just a very good strategy. So I don't hate the Falcons for taking a quarterback at 8. What I don't understand, and I will add, the Raiders apparently had their eye on Penix, so he wouldn't have been there at the end of the first round if they traded back. So Penix was an older quarterback prospect when he was drafted, and he has such an extensive injury history in college. It's like there was a collective amnesia by the Falcons front staff that because in the 2 years he was at Washington, he was, I think, mostly healthy. He had a season-ending injury 3, maybe 4 years straight at Indiana, and they were both with knee. There was knees. I think he had a fractured fibula. He had at least one ACL tear and at least one other partial ACL tear when he was in college. So you're drafting an old quarterback who's a very worrisome injury history at number 8. That was insane. And now I don't know.
It's coming to fruition, right? Like we're seeing that reason why you should care about this injury history because of partially torn ACL on a leg that already had an ACL tear. Who knows what it looks like when he comes back? Even.
Yeah. You can't, it can't be revisionist, but if the Falcons had taken JJ McCarthy at 8, that would made a lot of sense.
Yeah, so you're going to be without Drake London. Even when Drake London comes back, if it's relatively soon, I'm not going to rule out the idea of them shutting him down for some period of time. without Penix there. But even when Drake London comes back, you're going to have Drake London with Kirk Cousins,
which did not look good last year.
Yeah, and it's just a different level of upside because Kirk Cousins does target Mooney, whereas we haven't seen Penix target Mooney like at all. So Penix really funnels things through Drake London. Kirk Cousins doesn't, and that funnel is what was giving him the upside. It wasn't this like fantastic, amazing offense. But yeah, it stinks. I have Drake London places, and that's not fun. You know, you can't 1-for-1 replace him with Darnell Mooney. That's not how that works.
No. I mean, yeah, I think Mooney, we'll talk about Mooney, but is he the wide receiver 1 on this team now? I mean, obviously Bijan, you could argue Kyle Pitts too, but like as a pure receivers, I guess he's wide receiver 1.
Who else is there's Ray McLeod still there? Is that the other guy who there?
I don't think he is. I think he's gone.
Yeah, I'm trying hard to think about who the other wide receivers are. Casey Washington, David Sills, and Jamal Agnew. Kadarrell Hodge. He has to be the wide receiver 1. There's no way he's not.
That's okay.
That's a bad list.
Yeah.
But that poor of a list also doesn't really bode well. They're going against the Bears this week, which I'll save that.
No. They're going against the Saints.
It's not the same thing, but
for
the purposes of what I want to discuss here, it's pretty close. But we'll get there. We'll get there. It is not the same thing. I'm not trying to upset you, Willie. The Bears
defensively, there's some similarities.
Let's move to the Buffalo Bills here. So Keon Coleman was a healthy scratch. He could be back. Who knows? They didn't seem to miss him very much.
I think I read something like just like 20 minutes before we hopped on today that he might be benched again this week.
He skipped a meeting. He totally just skipped a meeting, which is a bad thing to do when you're not playing particularly well.
Yeah. He skipped another meeting like this week?
No, the Friday meeting from last week is the only one I heard about.
Okay. I'm going to look this up because I just heard about this. It's okay. Rumors he's expected to be benched for second straight game versus Texans, which is tomorrow. So maybe they're just wanting to like bench him for a week, and since it's a short week, maybe that would make a little more sense if he missed practice last week. But that's still something to look at.
They also lost they lost a wide receiver, Mecole Hardman, which it doesn't matter that much. Yeah. So they're going to be rolling out Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, Tyrell Shavers, the usual suspects. Which for the parts of this team you want to play doesn't matter much. Do you know if Kincaid is likely to come back? Because I think that's the person who I'd be looking forward to really play in the passing game
in fantasy. Yeah. I don't believe so. He's not he's not on IR, but he is not practicing right now. I don't believe.
Yeah, and for the Thursday game, that's bad news.
Yeah, and I mean this is a hamstring thing, so that they're gonna have to. I mean, if right now, at least if Josh Allen, if the Bills can bench Keon Coleman and Josh Allen can still get 6 touchdowns without Coleman and Kincaid, they're gonna let him rest.
yeah, they don't care much, I'm sure. Yeah, so you can't play Keon Coleman. You couldn't play him before, but you definitely can't play him now. This might actually be helping out anyone who has him on their team. 100%. For the Bengals, one of their guards got hurt, Jalen Rivers. He hurt his right ankle. He didn't come back. If you've seen the Bengals offensive line, I don't think this changes much. It's gotten better since Flacco's been there, but it has to be a product of Flacco. So it doesn't bug me much. Let's go to the Browns. This is a fun one. Dillon Gabriel. I'm sorry, Dylan. I shouldn't say this is a fun one. This isn't fun. This part's not the fun part. Dillon Gabriel got a concussion against Baltimore. So Shadeur Sanders finally got in. Shadeur is going to be playing the next game. So Dillon Gabriel's out. Based on what we've seen from the Browns, that can't really hurt their passing game. I mean, like, and that doesn't mean that it can be good. It just means that Dillon Gabriel was so inept, inefficient, I suppose is probably the right word to use here.
Like consistently inefficient every single play. Yeah.
So if they toss picks or if they throw 50 times for 180 yards. It's kind of the same thing.
I remember this. The stat line for Shadeur was just so ridiculously bad. Was it like 4 of 16 for with like 3 sacks, an interception, an intentional grounding? It was just a horrific stat line. I watched the video that showed every single one of his dropbacks and pass attempts, or actually no, just every single one of his plays. And he looks like a rookie, like a late round rookie, but he doesn't look as bad as the stat line suggests. There's still awful, awful, awful plays there, but he at least had some plays where he saw an opening to rush, and he's not usually a rushing quarterback, but he saw the best play to make given his situation at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some, even if he can't read defenses, there's some mental fortitude there with the game. So I would not be excited about him, but I mean this week maybe because we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get into that too. Let's move on to the Packers. Josh Jacobs hurt his knee. It doesn't seem to be a serious knee injury. They've described him as day to day, but it went from we don't think he's going to miss the season to we don't think we have to put him on IR to bone contusion, and he might play the next week. And Josh Jacobs is a tough dude. Uh,
Mhm,
and they do need a win. They absolutely need to win. And with the way the division's shaking out right now, and they're going against Minnesota, which is a divisional game.
mhm.
But I Josh Jacobs, I would say the cards are against him at this point. When we start off with, I don't think he's going to miss the season. It feels like they're gaming it a little bit to try to get to this day to day thing.
I think it's worth seeing what they got in Emmanuel Wilson. I mean, he's looked decent. He's had
Mm-hmm.
double-digit fantasy points at least 3 or 4 games, and that was with healthy Jacobs. I mean, I saw him as a top waiver wire ad. The top guy in our league, shout out Corey, has Josh Jacobs, and he's spent barely any fab because he drafted a really good team, and then he blew a lot of fab on Emmanuel Wilson. So totally makes sense. Like this is also a side note. Like if you still have a lot of fab to pay in your league, like you're getting up to the point where you need to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a perfect example. Like a handcuff for an injured running back is where you want to be focusing your spending.
I spent I think it was like 80% of what I had left on him, which was about 20% of the overall season. But I had more left than most people, so I just spent one more than the guy who was definitely going to bid on him had.
Mhm.
And I got him, and that's if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it does, you want the running back on the Packers.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
worth taking that shot. And since if he has a bone contusion, there's a good chance if he plays, he's going to get injured again.
yeah. It's worth it if you have a competent enough back like Emmanuel. It's worth sitting Jacobs, I would
Mm-hmm.
think.
Um, Also, it's not listed on here, but Jordan Love also left with a knee injury for a little bit. He came back into that game, and they haven't really talked about it more, but it wouldn't shock me if he plays a little hobbled for the next couple games.
Even more than he already has.
Unfortunately, yes.
I will say I think he's still expected to play, no lingering injury. But if Malik Willis does come in at quarterback, I mean it's always year to year. So he looked good last year. Who knows about this year? But in his limited play time last week, I think he threw a touchdown. And again, I guess you don't really want the Packers offense as a whole right now. So it's kind of a moot point, but I don't think Willis like brings down this passing offense. Um,
No, I don't think so either. And mostly for the reason you said, it's already kind of down, right? So you're not going from like an ultra great wide receiver 1 to maybe a wide receiver 2. You're going from a bunch of potential flex plays to still sitting as potential flex
yeah.
plays if Malik Willis is in, and he does look good. He runs really well. Malik is the one that if you find out he's playing, you might want to play Malik Willis because his rushing upside seems pretty huge.
Yeah, yeah, he's worth if that's I mean that's a hypothetical Jordan Love injury, but um that would he'd be a pickup there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about Los Angeles Chargers. Their running back Kamani Vidal did not return after exiting in the first half for the loss to the Jaguars, and that just stinks because Kamani was doing great, and now you've got Omari and Hampton on looming. If not back this week, within the next, I think week or two. So,
He's trending. His 21-day
mm-hmm,
practice window opened, so
so
um,
Vidal is someone who you may not need rostered much longer. No matter how good he's looked, if Hampton comes out and looks just as good, they're going to play their first round pick.
Like I drafted Hampton and I kind of forgot how good he was before he went down, but he just he had like 24, 27 points. I mean, the week he got injured, he had 13 points, but up until that point, he was like on track to get like another 30 plus points that game. So also his fantasies, this is a fun stat here. So it's week 12, the Chargers have a bye, a much needed bye. But then when the fantasy playoffs roll around in the championship, it looks like they're playing the Cowboys. So that could be fun.
It could be fun, and we talked a little bit about the Cowboys defense being improved, so that's an opportunity. But I would say that like don't get too excited because this Raiders defense has been or offense has been really bad, so it's really hard to get any gauge on if they're better or not from that game.
We will this
Quinn,
with the
we
Eagles.
will. Hmm. That's true. We will 100% see it.
Mhm.
Speaking of the Eagles, let's move on here. So the Philadelphia Eagles right tackle Lane Johnson hurt his foot, and you don't like losing tackles when you're a running team.
Nope.
So this just I don't know. It caps upside on a team that is in a weird place as far as upside goes with their offense currently. Like it's not like Saquon gets hurt a ton because he hasn't been doing a ton.
Yeah.
Uh, he's been solid, steady dude, and you can get his 2.7 yard per carry regardless of who's the right tackle. Uh,
It's weird. I gotta give props to Jalen Hurts because it's probably gonna happen again next year too. But he's not played with a consistent OC for more than 1 year since like I think it was like 2017 or something.
mm-hmm.
So like his entire tenure at Oklahoma, he had a new OC both years, and then throughout his tenure at the Eagles, every single year a new OC. So the fact that this offense is wonky and Hurts is still producing in at least in fantasy for the most part, and like still looks like a competent quarterback week in and week out when the offense is very different week in and week out. I think that speaks to the resilience of the skill position players on this team. We'll say that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they're all awesomely skilled. It's pretty nuts if you look at the amount of skill they have. I think that's the one thing that makes this offense seem so poor.
Hmm.
Isn't that they're just awful? It's that they could be so much more.
Yeah,
That's where you look at this offensive coordinator and go like, what's going on? You've got these two awesome wide receivers, an amazing running back, and a great QB and an awesome O line. How is this not just dominating right now? Um,
exactly. And that was my way of saying that. Like even if Lane Johnson, who's one of the best tackles in the league, even if he's out, it hurts his team significantly less than say like Chargers.
yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. This isn't the Joel. We're not at this level where it just completely changes the offense.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Pittsburgh Steelers because this is a interesting one. So Aaron Rodgers hurt his left wrist. I hear that it's a slight foot fracture of some sort,
Yeah.
and he did not return. He may still play this next week. Now, if you're like me and you have DK Metcalf on any of your teams, I don't know that you want him to return because once Mason Rudolph came in, DK actually started getting targets again.
Did he?
Crazy
Okay.
enough. Yeah. Um, Aaron Rodgers, every time DK and him miss a pass, he just yells at someone on the sidelines very emphatically, and then DK does not get any more passes his way.
Mason Rudolph, I have to defend him a little bit. Like, year in and year out, it's hard to say, but he's been really good on the Steelers at times. I mean, he started a playoff game and played well for them. He started at least one playoff game. Um, and again, Rodgers has been playing well, but the offense has been clicking a bit more than usual outside of DK. So I think if Mason has to come in and start a game, it doesn't tank the offense. It could help it.
Yeah, and this Darnell Washington guy, I don't think he's necessarily rosterable for fantasy because of the way they use their tight ends, but he looks phenomenal. He's so big and he's able to catch and move.
He looks like an athletic Frankenstein. Like he's
Yeah, he really does. He's like 6'7", 311 pounds, and he looks every pound of it. Like he's just,
and
that's like it's classic Steelers stuff. You got this giant dude just running down the middle of the field.
and you know where he comes from? He comes from Georgia, which is also kind of classic Georgia stuff with their
Hmm.
defenders.
Hmm.
Is Jalen Warren? I know he was injured-ish for this game.
Yeah, so he got injured and he did not return. Of course, they're optimistic that he'll be available for this week, but he didn't practice on Wednesday.
Okay.
So,
Just kind of up in
up in
the
the
air.
air. If he doesn't play, then you can definitely play Kenneth Gainwell.
I would guess Gainwell's probably rostered in most leagues. Probably. But if he's not, he's startable if Warren's not there.
Check it out. He's similar to Emmanuel Wilson for me, where it's like grab him, and then if the starter's out, play him. If the starter's
Mhm.
not, then just keep him because the starter is hurt. This is one of those good handcuffs to have at this point.
Is Caleb Johnson still alive? Like, does he still live in
Yeah,
Pennsylvania? Did he move out of Pennsylvania?
no, I've seen he was on the field this last game, and he had what looked like good plays, but with some boneheaded moves. It's
Okay.
kind of just exactly where you'd expect him to be. He's a rookie that, he's not getting the plays. So he's not really understanding how this game works and isn't slowed down for him. You can see a little bit of how he could be good, but I think he had a face mask penalty
Hmm.
that really hurt the drive that they were on. I can't remember what point this was in the game, but it was when the game was still close and it killed their drive. And I'm sure this is Arthur Smith's just yelling in the background, like, you can't do that. I'll never play you again. That's why Darnell Washington's our new running back. Uh, you
You could
know,
do it.
I think he could. I think, like, if you want to call someone the fridge, then Darnell Washington is the exact right guy to call the fridge. But I didn't mention this also. Ja'Marr Chase, not injured.
Oh yeah.
He threw a punch at Jalen Ramsey. They got into a whole entire fight. They're spit swapped, and not in the way that would connotate. Uh, well, I'll just leave it there. And so now Ja'Marr Chase has been suspended for the next game. So in week,
And fined $500,000. That's
so
that's.
much
I
money.
mean, it's so much money. And honestly, like, it's a waste of money, sure, but, like, I mean, good for the NFL. Like, that's such immature behavior to spit on somebody, and you are one of the top paid players in the entire league. So, I think you know, taxing him, so to speak, based on his income is ethical. I'll say that.
Yeah, and also like Ja'Marr Chase is in a lot of commercials. He's just such a face of the
Yeah.
NFL. You can't do that.
I think if they had fined him the same that they fined Jalen Carter, who's playing on a rookie scale contract, that would have been absurd. So I think it's good they fined him a lot of money.
It's interesting because I don't think we saw Dak get any fines for that same game.
I don't think we did. I mean, did we? I know Dak taunted him. But Carter was the one.
I think Dak also spit, but I don't think he spit directly on him. But it
That's
looked like he may have tried to.
that's what it was. Yeah. Did Ramsey do? I didn't see the video actually. Did Ramsey do anything?
He I think he also. I don't remember. I think he threw a punch back, but that might just be my memory filling in blanks. Honestly,
I know he didn't get fined or suspended.
we'll just say no.
Yeah.
For lack of evidence, we'll say no. Chase, of course, has denied that anything that Ramsey's saying has happened, despite there being video. Ja'Marr Chase is not making good moves, but the Bengals have had a rough year.
Yeah. Fake news.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's move on to the Titans. We have to, unfortunately, mention that Calvin Ridley broke his fibula, so he's out for the season. And then, of course, in the same game, the wide receiver that you'd hope would break out from this, Jahmyr DK. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry.
Jahmyr DK
I'm
is
sorry.
close. I mean, yeah.
He got a concussion and he was ruled out at halftime, so we don't know if we'll see him this next week. So Calvin Ridley's definitely out. Not that it should matter to your team. If you were still rostering him, you definitely don't need to anymore. But also, you did need to a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
DK, that one stinks because he had some potential as a breakout because he was starting to show flashes. Where you could find some hope here, and this is if you really are hard pressed in your wide receiver slot, is LKO Manor.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing okay to start the season. Now he's the only one there.
He hasn't fallen off because of his talent. There's been more targets for DK, so the ball's been spread around more. So if DK is out, and if Ridley's out, not that Ridley mattered,
Mm-hmm.
Manor I think can produce. Has touchdown upside. I mean, there's limited touchdown upside in this offense, but he's the true number one with both these guys out. And if this was a better coached team that had better talent all around, I think A.O. Manor could prove himself to be at least a legit high-end wide receiver 2 in the league. So
he's got the talent for it. It's just I don't know if their scheme is going to work out. Bo Hardegree is not a guy who you want as your chief play caller without a head coach to tell him no sometimes.
A.O. Manor also came from Stanford, which is an atrocious offense, so he's used to it.
he's like, I'm back. This feels right. This is just like home.
Yeah.
The Commanders lost wide receiver Jalen Lane for a hip injury. It doesn't matter a ton because the Commanders aren't a good team. However, Jalen Lane's worth bringing up simply because is you lose wide receivers, you can start funneling targets a little bit, so Debo might get a little bit more going.
Commanders are just
yeah, they had one of those. They're having one of those years. They're just having one of those years. You just throw it all out with the, throw the baby out with the bathwater. I said that, and I don't really know exactly how that fits.
I like it. It makes sense. I get it.
Okay, we'll move on to our main segment here, and this is going to be these like roster bubble players, not just roster bubble players. These are mostly players that are going to be rostered in every league. However, these are the players that do you want to get out from them? Do you want to get rid of them? Are they sell high players? Are they players that you sell away? Because this is, if you didn't already have your trade deadline, this is likely it this week. And or do you try to find someone off the waiver wire? Do you stay competitive on the waiver wire in lieu of these players? So we're gonna just talk about a few players at each of the positions. If there's not much to say, Willie, we don't have to say much. If you say no brainer keep, we'll just keep them. We'll just move on.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start off QB. First off, I'm going to bring up Lamar Jackson because everyone who owns Lamar Jackson's hurting a little bit and a little scared, I think, after that injury because he came back from the injury, he had one great game, and then the last 2 weeks he's put up 19 and less than 5.
Less than 5.
Yeah, less than 5 feels bad. It doesn't matter who you are, that feels bad.
I was going to say this is kind of like the inverse of what we did last week because last week we were, we're being hypotheticals. RV's guy is going to be like finishing in the top 5, like continue the greatness. This is more like RV's players trending downward for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think in the case of Lamar, we put him last week in the top 5, and I just really don't think he's trending down. I think last year and maybe this year a bit too, Josh Allen was pretty fluky where he had incredible games and then had some stinkers, and I feel like Lamar maybe just is at that level. And I think that I wouldn't worry based on this game against the Browns defense.
Yeah, I really, really felt bad about it Sunday night. But looking back on it, it's a divisional game against a team that has an amazing defense.
Yeah.
So it's not shocking that this didn't go particularly well. You'd hope for more than 4, but he did what he needed to do, and they still won the game. So his upside's still there. It hasn't gone away.
Oh, I've completely spaced this, but I got an alert today that he is questionable with an ankle injury and did not practice today. Forgot all about that.
So he hasn't been practicing Wednesdays since he came back from his injury. I would, if he sits out, it's something bad.
This is an ankle. That was the thing that stood out. It wasn't just like resting the hamstring. Like he has a supposed ankle injury.
Yeah. Again, I think if he sits out, that's how you know it's something real bad, and you're going to want to pivot hard because he's not going to sit out if he doesn't need to because the Steelers they did win, and they need to catch the Steelers still. They're like, this isn't just a division, it's theirs.
That was my last point I wanted to bring up about Lamar is that at the end of a season, he plays the Bengals twice and the Steelers and the Patriots. Patriots may be a little tougher, but it's a shootout. And he plays the Bengals twice. So
that's awesome.
Steelers twice and the Bengals again. So yeah.
It's such a good schedule that you're going to want to keep them. I mean, it's almost a shock that you'd never say anything otherwise. We'll move on to quarterback 2. Jalen Hurts, 14 points week 10 against Green Bay, then 14 points week 11 against Detroit. So he's steady, but not providing any upside. He lost Lane Johnson. I don't know who you're gonna get that's gonna provide kind of. He's got that rushing upside, right? So he can score a touchdown, and if they get on the one line, it's gonna be Jalen Hurts scoring the touchdown.
You know who I would compare Hurts to as a 1-to-1 comparison, and it kind of sounds crazy, but it makes sense. Is Bo Nix. Like him and Bo Nix provide the same level of upside. Uh, I mean, maybe Hurts more because of the rushing touchdown upside. Nix can still get those, and Nix gets a lot of garbage time passing touchdowns. The offense is pretty bad, but they're winning games. I feel like with Nix and with Hurts, these are two players that you're not going to get a better player, but don't expect them to finish that high.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of similarities to Nix.
Yeah, and we'll talk. Well, okay, let's just go ahead and bring up Bo Nix now. Bo Nix is another one of these players that are on the roster bubble because they've had, frankly, Bo Nix has looked really bad, and he hasn't had a really great fantasy week since his miracle fourth quarter comeback against the Giants, and then I can't remember who he played immediately after that off the top of my head.
I think did he play the Raiders? No, he was bad during the Raiders.
Bad during the Raiders, really bad during the Raiders. Yeah, it might have been the Chargers game or I don't remember his name, but it was against the Giants. Then he had the next week where he did pretty good, and ever since then he's been awful. So he's on his bye right now. He had 13 points week 11 against KC, and then 8 points week 10 against Las Vegas. Is he someone that, since he's on bye, you could drop and try to pick up? Maybe Tyrod. Okay, I said it and I hated it immediately. Maybe Shadeur Sanders.
Here, I'll share my strategy. So I have 3 quarterbacks rostered right now. One is Bo Nix on my bench because of the bye. I was able to get Jacoby Brissett. Another player to mention real quick is I picked up Joe Burrow because he was dropped after his injury and he was just on waivers. So I'm like, I'm going to pick up Joe Burrow. I think that I don't remember where I was going with this, honestly.
Joe Burrow is your strategy here. Get ready to move on from Joe Burrow for Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Which Joe Burrow's he's attempting to come back in week 13. So that would be next week, which would be the same week that Bo Nix is back because of this bye. So if you
Yeah.
really were going to go all in on Joe Burrow, maybe the hard part is I don't know that you want to hold Bo Nix through your bye if you don't plan on keeping him.
If you were able to get like Darnold off waivers and you're starting him this week, I would drop Bo Nix for Joe Burrow. I guess that would also involve having Joe Burrow on waivers, which maybe he isn't. But anyway, I would drop Bo Nix for Joe Burrow. Let's say that.
Fair. So Bo Nix is someone that we're okay with moving on from at this point, and I would be too because that this is me being a little salty. I'm going to be real with you, but them kind of just switching their wide receiver hierarchy completely to Troy Franklin has not really worked out for them very well.
No.
It has because they're winning games, but I would say they're winning games in spite of their offense looking much worse than it did at the start of the season.
Yeah. And I do want to say I made the 1-to-1 comparison to Jalen Hurts based on what we've seen the season so far. I don't mean that rest of the season. I'm just like, this is what it's looked like so far. But Hurts, he just is not going to fall off a cliff like Bo Nix could.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about Justin Herbert of the Chargers. So he had 16 points week 10 against Pittsburgh. It's an okay game, but then he had 3 points last week against Jacksonville. And just this was again that game that he had against Jacksonville in the playoffs. I think there's like some shell shock. There's got to be something there because Jacksonville just has his number. But is Justin Herbert someone that you would expect to be a quality starting quarterback for the rest of the season, or is he someone that you might want to move on from?
This is hard for me because he just has looked night and day with the lack of Joe Alt.
Yeah. Joe Alt seems to be such a linchpin on that offense. Like without Joe Alt, it's almost just not worth. He goes to what we thought he might be preseason, which was like a serviceable plug and play quarterback that's not great for your team but can be there.
If he doesn't score multiple passing touchdowns, he has a bad game, like a bad game. This is, I don't know where I'm getting this. Similar kind of play style comparison, similar fantasy output. If Herbert has a good game this week and Matt Stafford has a mediocre game, I would trade Herbert for Stafford or try to, because both of these guys, both of their impact, they're both in Los Angeles. Both of their fantasy impact comes from passing touchdowns, but a guy like Stafford has just been so much more consistent than Herbert, and has a much better offense as a whole. That I would maybe pivot to another pass pass throwing. I don't know. I don't know where.
Something, but like because I think the cat might be out of the bag with Matt Stafford, right? Like he's been having a great season. They've had MVP talks, and usually that'll solidify people against trading him. So let's talk about some of the other quarterbacks you could maybe trade him for. So let's say, would you rather have Justin Herbert or Bo Nix?
Herbert.
Okay, Herbert or Darnold?
I mean, it's hard to say after Darnold's game last week. Just I don't know. Keep Herbert.
Fair. No, I know it's a tough one, and that's the sad part in itself is that it's a tough one, right?
Herbert runs more, so
yeah. The next one I'm gonna say is just it's awful. So get ready. It's Herbert or Trevor Lawrence.
okay. We're done.
It's not Trevor Lawrence. Okay.
No,
Justin Herbert, be willing to move on if you need to, if there's someone better out there.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones. We'll talk about Daniel Jones for a second. So he just had his bye. Prior to this, he had a 16-point week against Pittsburgh and a 17-point week against Atlanta, which I'd say both are pretty solid. Do you feel any need to move on from him? Are you worried about him for the rest of the season?
No, I think that I'm going to talk about this a bit later, but again, the Colts run game is the core of their offense, but I would suspect over the bye they worked on making this passing game more cohesive and giving the ball to Tyler Warren more. So I don't think Jones is going to regress. I think if you have Jones, you're happy with him. I don't think he's going to get significantly better, but I think he's a solid enough starter to have as your QB1.
Okay, fair. Baker Mayfield, talk about. So Baker Mayfield, 4 points week 8. Week 10, 10 points, New England. 19 points against Buffalo last week. Clearly he's missing having Mike Evans or Chris Godwin out there. And he's also just hasn't looked the same for a few weeks now. He's been overthrowing players. I don't know if there's like some phantom injury going on here. Because that would explain why all of a sudden he's overthrowing everyone, is that something's not right in his shoulder or something, but we don't, that's speculation.
Yeah. I think he has nowhere to go but up. I wouldn't panic on him like you maybe would panic on Bo Nix or Herbert. We might not get Evans back. I don't know when we're going to get Godwin back or Bucky, but I feel like we probably have seen Baker's floor in my opinion.
Okay, so you think there's better days ahead for Baker, and you have to remember at the beginning of the season he looked like he was going to be the MVP. So
yeah.
Let's move on to running backs. So I'm going to start off here with Rico Dowdle. And the reason I bring Rico Dowdle into this conversation at all isn't because of his scores, because he's been scoring pretty well last 2 weeks. However, his rushing efficiency has dipped quite a bit. I had it listed and I have lost my list. I think he was around like 2.7 and like 3.2 yards per carry the last 2 weeks. He hasn't looked the same. However, I know this team still loves him. And he was apparently the guy who chose the play call for one of the final plays in regulation, or maybe it was an overtime even, that led to Bryce Young scoring. What do you think about Rico Dowdle? Is he someone that you could maybe get value from for trading, or is he someone that you're looking to just hold on to your team for the rest of the season?
I will say Bryce Young is not going to pass for almost 500 yards again, maybe ever. So I think the fact that Dowdle was involved and looked good last week, despite them passing the ball so much, is a good sign. I'm not worried about Chuba really cutting into his workload. I think that he's a good buy low candidate, maybe sort of. It's hard to say if it will be sustainable all year, but I'm not super worried about Dowdle.
Yeah, and I will give better stats. So last week against Atlanta, he had a 2.4 yards per carry average, but he was involved in the passing game, which kind of saved him. He was 5 for 55. And then against New Orleans, he had a 2.9 yard per carry. So 18 carries, 19 carries. He did get a touchdown in New Orleans and was 3 for 10 in the passing game. So he's involved in the passing game. And I think that alone is going to make it worthwhile. I do worry that if the efficiency dips, they're going to bring in Chuba. But that just changes maybe his upside.
I think the fact that he's still involved in the passing game helps. I like,
okay. And I'll just be clear about my opinion with Rico Dowdle here is that I think that if you have him, he's a fantastic piece. If you have someone in your league who values him as a top 10 running back, you might be able to eke something out of there because I think you're probably looking at low end RB1, high end RB2 once it all shakes out.
Yeah. I think that if you're in a, this is never hypothetical, but I think if you're in a position, yeah, I would do this. If you're in a position where you're actually like winning and very likely to make playoffs, I would trade Dottle for Amari and Hampton or someone
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
that.
I think the season long value is there. Like Dowdle has looked great, but we've also seen Dowdle before, and it hasn't always been that way. We'll move on to the next player. So let's talk about Saquon Barkley. So 13 points week 10 against Green Bay, 10 points week 11 against Detroit. He's had a really bad yards per carry the last 2 weeks, which is, gone along with the whole entire season, really. So last 2 weeks, he's at 3.2 and 2.7 yards per carry. Not as involved in the passing game as you want because the Eagles don't apparently have a passing game. With Saquon, the question isn't, is he going to return value? Because even with all these stats, he's still managed to be RB10 on the or RB11 on the year in PPR. The question is can you use his name to get better for me?
I was gonna say I don't think we've seen his ceiling or his floor. I think we're just gonna see who he is for the rest of the season. Like, and that's like probably like a low end RB1. I mean, he's got the name value, but then you think about other like similar situations like Derrick Henry, or like maybe I guess you could say like an Ashton Genty, like other like first round picks that aren't performing at a high end RB1 status. I wouldn't really want them more than Saquon. So I mean, you probably just want to hold him. I don't think he's going to trend down, but I don't think he's going to trend up.
Yeah, I agree. So I think this is, I'm with you. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Again, if you have like if you need like a package deal and you get like a wide receiver 2 with someone who could potentially pop as a running back or as like, a solid RB2, I could see myself making that trade.
Mhm.
This is better than the season I had envisioned him having after the amount of the volume he had last
That's he's still putting up numbers.
year. And he's managing to stay healthy despite having, 26 carries last week, 22 carries the week before, and that's with, 3 receptions in there. So the volume's there.
Yeah.
His legs is just tired, I get it.
He makes me watching him. I get tired.
Javonte Williams with the Dallas Cowboys. So week 9, he had 7 points against Arizona. He went on to a bye in week 10. So last week, week 10 week 11 against Las Vegas, he only had 10 points. He had a couple really nice looking runs once the defense had already given up in the second quarter.
Mm.
And other than that, though, he was getting bottled up completely. So is Javonte Williams still the same guy who we thought he was at the start of the year? And is there value to be gained from getting rid of him?
I think he's never what you see is what you get. The one thing that's interesting to me is the fact that if the Cowboys defense gets better, they're going to be able to run more. But at the same time, I think if we have CD, George Pickens, and Jake Ferguson all healthy for a couple weeks consistently, that's going to hurt Javonte's upside. But I think what you see is what you get.
Yeah, and I would say that the difference between the last few weeks and the beginning is that he's not scoring touchdowns right now. And I
Yeah.
think that's because you're seeing the passing game scoring more touchdowns. Now that CD and Pickens and Ferguson, like you said, are there, the touchdown upside is going to be a lot lower. Now, the inverse of that is if this defense is a lot better, that could bode well for the running game.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the name of the backup who they just played this week, but he looked a lot better than Jadon Blue had at any point this season. So that would be the other thing. I don't know where they got him. He's like kind of a complete no name, just kind of popped off the streets, and he looked pretty good.
It's not Phil Maffa, is it?
No. Yeah. Anyways, that would be the other worry for me is that they bring him in and he starts getting some volume because really, but the touchdown upside is where it's at for me. So do you think that the Cowboys running back can have more touchdown upside overall than he has these last 2 weeks, then you want to keep him and you want that value? And if you don't, then this might be a good time to capitalize on him.
Yeah.
I mean, this will be probably your last time if you're listening to this. Again, I assume trade deadlines are iffy, but like in all my leagues, it either has happened last week or is happening this week.
Yeah.
Brees Hall. He went nuclear like 2 weeks ago. But last week he had 8 points, and Tyrod Taylor was named the starter. So Tyrod Taylor is the big differentiator here because we've seen him with Tyrod Taylor and it hasn't been the same as it was with Fields. So is Hall someone that you're just happy to keep plugging in?
With Garrett Wilson out, probably, yeah. I mean, not to be redundant, but even with the switch up on the offense with the play calling and trades, I think that what you see is what you get again with Hall. And with Wilson out, like he's the best offensive piece on this team. So even if his upside goes down for other reasons, it also goes up without Wilson there. So
yeah, that's fair. DeAndre Swift. We have the emergence of Kyle Mononga as a real part of this offense, and then we had him with the 9 points against Minnesota, week 11. Is DeAndre Swift someone that you can rely on?
I'm bullish enough on Mononga that I'm going to say no. I almost would, and not just because of the Johnson connection, but I almost would compare DeAndre Swift to like his value being similar to David Montgomery. He's going to have more touchdowns than Montgomery, but he's going to have probably less blow up games than Montgomery. Bears offense looks great, and they're getting the other pass catchers more involved. I think Swift is startable for sure, but his value's peaked, I think.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep working Mononga into the red zone in particular because Mononga's look pretty good there.
The
And
past 2 weeks he's been the red zone back. Yeah.
And that hurts Swift a lot. Like that can't be understated. Like when you lose that touchdown upside, you lose so much of your potential points.
Yeah. I think he's trending down quite a bit for me. I do want to say also Mononga looks awesome. He really, really is good at breaking contact. Very, very, very exciting piece to have. Also the Bears, I didn't get to talk much about the Bears, but I don't even know what to say. I don't want to jinx anything. So but I did want to also add really quick, total tangent, but injury news. Jalen Johnson is gonna be back probably in the next couple weeks. So something to get
Defense
excited
can get a little bit better here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not jealous or anything. The team could get better and actually make improvements at some point. But I'm really happy because having the Bears as a good NFC North team is fun because they haven't been historically in the last while, and it's always good to see Green Bay. It's not the best team there.
Yeah, and they have parity in the NFL is always good.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. It's like I would love to see the Titans make the back into the playoffs once, just because it's been so long, and it's with the Bears. It's been a while. They made it to the playoffs more recent, definitely, but as far as like a team that has an actual shot
and an identity, that's the thing.
Ben Johnson turns out is looking like a pretty good coach.
Really, yeah, like really, and if they had like a coach of the year award that was specifically for best new coach, I think he probably. Well, actually, no, Vrabel would be the slam dunk pick, but he just has definitely built a huge culture in Chicago. I can tell just from watching like the post game locker room videos and how much everyone respects him, but how he's not just this tough as nails coach. Like he relates to the players. Like just I'm super super happy.
Well, and you can kind of feel like the buy-in happening as the results are happening. You know what I mean? Like they know what they're doing, but as they're seeing it work out, they're just getting better and better at molding into the system. Almost, it feels like.
Yeah,
and that's only going to be great. I mean, we saw it take a couple years, or one full year at least in Detroit for the system to really kick in.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago had the pieces, and we're seeing it kick in really quick, which means where can it go next year even?
It's on the defense. I think at this point, I'm super content with the offense.
Mm-hmm. Which is awesome. It's just awesome. I am happy for you. I may not sound it, but that's just because bitterness is overtaking my whole entire body at this point. Speaking of bitterness, Ashton Jeanty. Let's talk about him. 15 points week 10 against Denver, 9 points week 11 against Dallas, which based on what I saw is way better than I would have guessed. The play calling and the team seem to be working directly against him at this point. And I just don't know what to say about their offensive line other than I don't ever imagine it getting better.
You might be the better guesser at this, but I feels like there's a possibility that AOC starts over Gino at some point this season, and that it just is a big mystery. Like, is Ashton Jeanty going to be his go-to? Is it going to like we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns there.
So AOC, I would feel like if Geno has another multi-int game and AOC's healthy, they're gonna plug AOC back in there. It's just
Yeah.
been the path of Raiders quarterback since Derek Carr was gone. Is AOC's just standing back there like, wait till you mess up and then I'm coming in. And AOC, he's not a good quarterback, but he's not like a god awful quarterback like Geno has been this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's strictly in this like absolutely neutral quarterback zone where he doesn't help your team.
Doesn't hurt it.
It doesn't hurt it. He's just
He,
there. He just exists to fill a role.
he reminds me a lot of Davis Mills.
Yeah, Davis Mills is better at throwing the long ball, whereas like Aiden O'Connell is better at throwing the medium range, where it's very inoffensive.
Yeah.
I inoffensive is the word I would say. But anyways, my point being is that there's two players that could absolutely benefit from Aiden O'Connell, and they're the two players you do want to benefit from Aiden O'Connell. Brock Bowers, we've already seen it. Aiden will pepper Brock Bowers with targets.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. Just like Gardner Minshew before him, he sees Brock Bowers. He goes, "You had the ball, bud. Take it."
Mm-hmm.
And then Ashton Genty in theory because he could dump off more.
Yeah.
We're seeing Ashton Genty, all of his value is coming from dump offs, but also Chip Kelly has been asked multiple times, what the heck happened? 6 carries for 7 yards. You can't do that against the worst run defense in the league. You can't do that. So the question is, does Chip Kelly correct or does he get like mega brain and like, no, I'm right. Watch.
Again, that's the unknown with this one.
So Ashton Genty is someone that I don't. He was one of my doinkers to start this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the skill is still clearly there. The hard part for me is when I see them on the sidelines, he's got those dead eyes of a guy who is losing a bunch of games and has absolutely nothing to do with it, and they all look very checked out. At this point, if I could move a Raiders player for someone of equal value, I'm moving them.
Yeah, I like that.
And that does include Bowers. Even though Bowers is amazing, if they can't figure out this offense, then Bowers is just going to get clamped.
I mean, yeah, and the best game we've seen him have all season was against the Bears, who don't have a great run defense, and we saw him against another pretty poor run defense. So it's like he's only produced even remotely good games against like not good defenses. And well, then the Cowboys, he was awful too. But yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a way out this season.
No. So, I'd say if you can move him, do it, and if you can't, I don't consider him more than the low end RB2 right now.
Yeah.
Which let's talk about the next guy. We're gonna keep rolling into these guys. Quinshon Judkins, 4 points week 8 against New England, 10 points week 10 New York Jets, and 11 points last week against Baltimore. So we saw 4 points against New England. That can almost be excused because New England was just really locking down the run. They had just been phenomenal at that point. But 10 against New York and then 11 against Baltimore. It feels pretty bad when those were two defenses that had been pretty porous against the run. Quinshon has the opportunity here that there's a chance that Shadeur Sanders opens up the run, which is crazy. But Dylan Gabriel was definitely not the guy who was doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Because with Flacco is when Flacco was there, that's when we saw at least the beginnings of Quinshon.
And Quinshon clearly has talent. We saw that, right? Like, so when Flacco was there, Quinshon was able to bust runs. He was able to do the thing. So is there a chance that Quinshon can return that value, or do you think this offense is just dead on arrival at this point?
I think we're going to find out maybe this week. Let's say that.
Yeah, I agree.
Would you ever, rest of the season, would you rather have Ashton Genty or Quinshon Judkins?
Quinshon Judkins.
I probably would say that. I'm actually going to double down and say whoever looks better this week. Obviously, Genty's going to be going against the Browns' run defense, but like really watching the game, looking at the game, like whoever is better, I'll just say that guy.
Yeah, well, the thing with Quinshon is that they've continued to give him volume. It's just that defenses aren't respecting the passing game at all, so they're just stacking the box, and there's nowhere for him to go.
Yeah,
this is going to be an issue until a quarterback finally beats them. Dylan Gabriel wasn't that guy. He's not going to be that guy.
I mean, so Quinshon doesn't have the receiving volume that Genty has. That's the one thing.
Quinshon's got an incredibly low floor. Like we're talking like 2 points in a bad loss floor.
Yeah.
Whereas Ashton Genty's going to catch at least one pass for 10 yards and then run some. Hopefully more. And that provides a bit of a floor. So, this is one of those, if your team lacks upside, Quinshon, oh gosh, I can't even believe I said that. But Quinshon, I think, has more overall upside just because of the volume that he has. Whereas Genty has a better floor.
I think that's a fair assessment. Just because of the receiving usage, I think that's a fair assessment. You mentioned about players with no floor, and that the
Hmm.
next guy you have here is also a great
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. Kenneth Walker, the third, even. Week 11, he did awesome. So you're going to think I'm crazy for even bringing him up here because he had 20 points against the Rams. Before that, he had less than 10 points for 6 straight weeks. I am including the bye in there just for full disclosure, but 6 straight weeks, less than 10 points. A guy who would basically become unplayable before he pops off for 20 against a good defense.
Well, there's the other factor here is that there was the first bad game that Sam Darnold had was the first great game that Kenneth Walker had.
Yeah, because Sam Darnold threw a whole bunch of picks.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't really able to get it done through the air. Kenneth Walker, and this is the hard part. We talked about this a little bit preseason, is that I think Kenneth Walker has a ton of talent, and I think he can look really good. This Seattle team hasn't been dedicated to him. They've been totally fine with giving Charbonnet a whole bunch of carries, which is, fair. They've been winning games. They've looked fantastic. I'm not here to, say that's wrong. But with Kenneth Walker, if he's not getting the volume and he's not hitting the home runs, he's just tanking your team is all he's
Yeah.
doing. So Kenneth Walker is a guy who if you can get someone to bite on this final trade week and be like, look, he's here. This is real.
Mm-hmm. Sell him for sure.
Yeah. And we'll talk about him in a little bit because I actually do like him this week. But rest of the season, too volatile. Way too volatile. Let's move on to someone who might be on the bubble for some players. Woody Marks of the Texans. 3 points week 9 against Denver, 16 points week 10 against Jacksonville, and then 6 points week 11 against Tennessee. So he has kind of this wonderful matchup against Tennessee, and he just blows it. And you'd think like, oh well, this is a Davis Mills thing, but then he did great against Jacksonville. So what's going on with Woody Marks?
That was the thing for me. That was the deciding factor was this past week against the Titans when he didn't look good. They didn't use him enough. It was a close game, so whatever. I just don't. I think he's too volatile to be like a flex play sometimes. I don't. If he's my RB2, I would not be happy. And I say that as someone with injuries. My RB2 now is Kyle Monungai, so I wanted to talk. But I just he's two boomer bust on a talk about low floors on bad offenses. That would be Woody Marks.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I'll give a little bit of an idea. I was offered Woody Marks for Aronde Gadsden, and I turned that down. I decided to keep Gadsden just for the upside, and because exactly this with Woody, I don't know that when I play him in a plus matchup that's going to matter.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the thing for me.
Yeah, and that's a bad place to be because then you're just really just rolling the dice, saying, "Hey, is this the week that he gets the touchdown and looks good, or is this the week that he just keeps getting stuffed over and over again, and Houston looks awful?" And honestly, when CJ Stroud comes back, it's not going to help this offense.
No, he's also going to be out Thursday's game too.
Yeah, so too much volatility on a bad offense. I don't love it. David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions, week 9, 11 points, 10 points week 10, 5 points week 11. So just this kind of middling to bad every week RB that is on a great offense still. And we've seen David Montgomery have good games this season. He still has the potential. It's not like that's gone. But is David Montgomery someone you can rely on?
I mean, so far, like the past 3 weeks, Tyler Allgeier's had touchdowns, but he's had a much better stat line than David Montgomery. And the other thing is that in the past couple weeks, play calling switched over to Dan Campbell, and Montgomery's usage and efficiency virtually stayed the same. So I mean, again, we can talk over and over and over again. If Gibbs hypothetically goes down, Montgomery's a league winner. Yes, he is, but I don't want to start Montgomery really any week, even in plus matchups. I mean, it's not like I would feel awful about it, but I don't want to. He's not going to be someone I pivot to.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. Right now, he's not looking like he's someone that you want in the starting lineup. Agreed. So if you have someone out there who likes Montgomery, and there are people out there who like Montgomery a lot, go trade for him. Let's say, would you trade him for the next guy on our list, Trey Benson?
That's a weird one because, well, I also have Trey Benson. We just don't like. I don't know when he's coming back from IR. The one thing that helps him though is that the rest of the Cardinals running back room is just atrocious. So if he does come back and is healthy, he's not going to have any competition, in my opinion. No one is broken out to suggest that. But then you also have the factors that we haven't seen him with Jacoby Brissett very much at all. So we don't know what Brissett. I think Brissett's probably a check down guy. I mean, he's done it to the mediocre Cardinals running backs for the most part. We don't know about Benson. He's more upside than Montgomery. I'll say that.
Okay, so Benson for the upside. Yeah, Montgomery's on the better team, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I think if you need one of these two players to start for you, it's Benson.
Yeah.
And that might not be this week, but he is ramping up his practice at the very least. So I think there's good signs that it'll be this week.
I think as soon as he comes back, he's startable.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna skip over Amari and Hampton. We kind of mentioned him already. We clearly want him. So let's move on to wide receivers. The first one I'm going to bring up here, we might move past pretty quick. I'm going to ask about Rashee Rice. So he had 9 points PPR week 11. And my question with Rashee Rice is, if he's valued as a top 5 wide receiver, should you capitalize on that value?
Like one way or the other?
Yeah.
It's hard because just the past week he didn't have a great game, but I think that the past couple weeks, I think we've seen him, at least in my opinion, he's probably a low end wide receiver one, mid to low end wide receiver one. I was a little higher on him. He's not quite top 5. So if you were able to trade him to somebody who thinks he's top 5, I would take that. But I mean, also I'd be ecstatic if he was on my team.
What if you could get someone like, let's say you could get Devon Achane?
Yes.
Okay, willing to do that. So there's a line, and I think that's probably around where his value is from what I've seen. Because that's the thing with Rashee Rice for me, is that not that I think he's going to be a bad asset. It's just that I think that the way he's valued is maybe a little bit higher than his rest of the season output, just because I don't think the Chiefs are ever going to fully rely on that one guy.
Yeah, that's true. He's not going to fall off, though. He's not going to tank your team by any
means. Yeah, exactly. So it'll still be fine, but I think that there is an opportunity to capitalize on value if you find the right person. Especially if you have Chiefs fan in your league, which, the Chiefs have been good, so you probably do have a Chiefs fan in your league.
Yeah, Corey.
But I'll move on. We're not trying to get rid of Rashee. Nico Collins, dominating with Mills right now. But what happens when CJ Stroud's come back? Do you want to take over this, take this opportunity while Mills is in there and he is dominating to make a trade versus waiting for CJ Stroud to come back and looking terrible?
As soon as we started talking about Nico Collins, my cat got the craziest zoomies. There's a sign. But I hate this Texans offense. I just hate it. I don't know. This is such a frustrating team.
I think here's the one thing I'll say. I think that Higgins is looking a lot better, right? And Higgins looking a lot better is a positive for Collins, because there was actually no one on that team who other defenses had to care about.
Jalen Knowles he's gotten some touchdowns too. They're both rookies,
so I think that coincides, but it also coincides with Mills starting. And I'm not trying to say Stroud is a bad quarterback, but I think Stroud has been placed in a bad situation for his skill set. I think Stroud could really benefit from having an offensive line so he could actually scan the field and make reads.
His best play.
Yeah. Nico's someone who I don't trust very much going forward, because we've seen just this Texans offense kind of stink. So he is currently doing great, and I would imagine that if you could get something for that, I would.
He feels like a guy that's going to get like 3 or 4 receptions for like 50 yards rest of the season.
So would you? Never mind. I was going to ask you to trade him for Rashee Rice. I know the answer to that. Would you trade him for Drake London with a pending injury looming over his head?
I think that's a fair trade.
Yeah. What about would you trade him for Rome Odunze?
I think that's also a pretty fair trade. I don't know. I think I'd probably keep Rome, but I think those are both fair.
Let's talk about the next guy then. We'll move on because we're kind of washed there. Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins, 8 points week 11 against Washington. Now on bye. If you need a win right now, are you willing to trade Waddle away? He's a top 10 wide receiver. He's looked really good since Tyreek Hill's gone down.
If you need a receiver to play this week and your team's not looking great, definitely trade Waddle. But he is a player that I would trade for. I think that the Dolphins, cautiously, optimistically, are on the up and up. They've looked better in recent weeks. I feel like there's some energy back, and I think Waddle has proven, like he did his rookie year, that he can be a target hog and a volume hog and produce. I mean, he didn't have a great game against the Commanders, but he had an average game. And I think that he's someone that I'd want on my team if my team's already doing good and does not need a win week 12.
I see. This is what gets me excited about Mike McDaniels, that he's still able to scheme Waddle open somehow, despite the fact that they don't have any other wide receivers there.
Yeah.
And that's what I like when I'm watching this, is that Waddle still is open and sometimes very open. And he is the only guy who they have to worry about besides HN. But I'm with you. Even on bye, like even if you need a win, if the team that with Waddle needs a win and you can somehow shake him out for a good value, I like the risk.
If someone offered me like Devonta Smith for Waddle, I would. Even if I needed a win week 12, I would do that.
Yeah. Like there's a line where I'm like, the gamble is worth it because I think Waddle's just going to keep returning value right now.
Consistently, yeah.
Justin Jefferson of the Vikings. So 8 points week 10. That's Baltimore. 11 points week 11, Chicago. JJ McCarthy is at this point tanking his value. But I'll be honest with you, watching these games, it's not just JJ McCarthy. Justin Jefferson is also not being the sure-handed receiver that we've seen before. He has dropped a few would-be touchdowns. So there's something funky going on there.
Yeah.
Do you think he bounces back? Do you think he is someone who you might be able to get value on if you try to trade for him right now?
It's hard for me to say because, for one, I think the Viking seasons, I don't think McCarthy's going to get better. But at the same time, I don't think that Justin has anywhere to go but up. So I think, okay, it's a boom or bust risk. It's a risky pick, but in the idea that he gets better, JJ gets better, he's worth trading for. Yes.
Out of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, who would you rather have right now?
Oh, definitely Jefferson.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if Jordan Addison had the chemistry with, like, if Jalen Naylor, if Jalen Naylor has looked better than Addison most weeks. So if Jalen Naylor had the name recognition of Addison and we knew he was going to be wide receiver 2, I would maybe consider that. But I think that I don't know where I'm going with this, but Jefferson for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Just making sure. I've seen people pretty down on Justin Jefferson.
And I am, but I think he's worth the risk.
Jefferson or Rome Odunze?
I think that's a pretty fair trade.
Okay. Jefferson or Devonta Smith?
Jefferson.
Okay. All right. So they're about the same line as Jalen Waddle right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Drake London, because one, he's injured right now. We don't necessarily know how injured he is, but let's say he just misses this week, and Penix is out for the season. So we've got Kirk Cousins to Drake London. Where are you valuing Drake London?
Pretty low.
Oh, yeah, I feel it.
Just because of what we saw. I mean, even if Kirk gets better, he did not. Even in games he had And maybe my memory's wrong, but even in games where Kirk looked good, like in Kirktober last year, Drake London wasn't his main guy. So Penix and London are definitely the much higher ceiling and floor. Um, and he's a candidate. Maybe you could buy low, but you would have to get something because you really can't trade him right now. And I would try, but you're not going to get enough for him.
Yeah, I think the injuries really puts a hamper on that, unfortunately, because no one really knows exactly how long he's going to be out right now.
Yeah.
Because I think if it was like guaranteed to just be this week, you could sneak a trade in, someone would take it. But with the idea that it could be longer than that, and this late in the season, if you miss 2 to 3 weeks, you're missing almost the rest of the regular season for fantasy. So you'd have to be someone who's locked in for the playoffs and believes in Kirk Cousins, which is a weird combo, you know?
Looking at his games last year of Cousins, he had one game above 20 points, and almost every single game, he had the volume to get him a low end double digits, like 18, 7, 10, 16, 9, 16, 12, 14. Like that's okay, but that's not what he was doing with London. And he had
Yeah.
one game above 20 points.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Drake, not so into. So Roma Dunze, we've kind of like gathered his value a little bit here. Are you looking to move off of him? He hasn't had the greatest 3-week span. He did get 21 points against the New York Giants, but we're seeing a 0 against Cincinnati and 6 against Minnesota.
As a Bears fan, I have to say, I've watching at least highlights of every game. Luther Burden looks so good, and Luther Burden to DJ Moore. That comparison is more apt because we've seen DJ Moore get phased out more and more, but Colston Loveland is also really looking good. So I think that Rome Adunze, we've seen his ceiling, and I would try to sell him high. I
Yeah.
have not tried that. I have not done that myself, but I think we're just going to see Burden and Loveland more involved. So,
Do you have an idea of who you might try to sell him for? Like what range of receivers you'd be looking for to get back from him? And not that I always want to give this caveat. I don't really love 1-for-1 receiver trades. That's not really what I love to do, but this is the easiest way to get a value on him.
this goes against what I was saying earlier this year, but I think that if you could get him for Jalen Waddle or Chris Olave, that the volume that they're going to have will make up for the big play potential that Adunze has.
And I think Chris Olave is a great name because I think Chris Olave has been awesome, and I don't really see a reason for that to stop. And
He looked awesome with Rattler and Shuck.
Yeah, exactly. He's been basically in the exact same role with both quarterbacks, and it's worked.
Mm-hmm.
So the Saints being a bad team is really what you can lean into. Is that the Bears are ascending, the Saints are in the mud, and make a point that like Rome's got nowhere to go but up on a team that's also rising up, and that's not what I necessarily think, but that's how you would end up getting someone like Olave, and I think you could.
Yeah, I think so.
But I'll move on because we've talked about it. Olave in relations to other players, not Olave, Odunze in relation to other players. Olave is not on this list because there's not a huge reason to trade Olave at this point.
Yeah.
AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. I lump them together because they both have the exact same issue that this offense is not reliable for pass catching. We did see AJ Brown get his 11 targets after he yelled about it.
So consistent.
And he didn't really do much with it because there's not really much to go around. So are these players that you think can even be good pieces on playoff contender teams?
No, I would sell them on name value.
Agreed. I think right now AJ Brown's stock is really down. He's been getting a whole host of media press about all of his issues, whereas Devonta Smith has had some good games during this time.
But he's had some bad games too.
That's 100% true. I think that you could still get more for Devonta at this point than AJ Brown.
Probably.
Mm-hmm. But either way, if you have them and you can trade them, I would. I don't see this Eagles offense. If it was going to get better at passing the ball, I think it would have happened. I think they know where the issue is, and they still can't fix it.
Yeah, and their defense is so good they don't have to. Not now.
Yeah, it'll be bad for them in the playoffs, but you don't play fantasy in the playoffs, so. Okay, these next two I don't even really want to talk about them, but we have to. DK Metcalf. of the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2 points week 9, 6 points week 10, 10 points week 11, and then there's one little shining ray of hope here, and that is the Aaron Rodgers injury.
Yeah.
What do you do with DK Metcalf?
He's a hold for me because of the Rodgers injury. I think if Rodgers keeps starting, I don't know. I mean, you probably just have to hold him. I don't think anyone's going to trade for him. I wouldn't trade for him. I would just forget that he's on your team. Just start him sometimes.
I think the real only option with him is that you drop him for a waiver pickup.
I highly doubt unless Jacobs is out for a bit and you are Jacobs owner and you want to pick up Emmanuel Wilson and you can somehow. That's just a really niche hypothetical. Like I would drop DK for someone like with the upside like that, but that's not super likely to happen.
No, and I think what made me more positive is Mason Rudolph did give him targets, and the
Yeah.
offense looked better once he started getting targets.
Yeah.
Like
So,
when it's not Aaron Rodgers and they're yelling about people not doing exactly what he wants, and it's someone who's just operating the offense the way it's written up, probably. There's a little Rodgers hate baked into what I just said right there. Just to be frank with everybody. Metcalf looked fine, and he was getting targets, and he was converting his targets. He didn't blow up by any means, but it did look better than it has the last few weeks with Rodgers.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine just starting the game that way. And again, I've watched Rodgers do this multiple times over the last few years. He ices out his wide receivers if he gets mad at them. He just does. And that's happened to DK a couple times because DK is the only wide receiver worth any salt on that team. I mean, we've seen good games from Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson.
But they're role players that if they're in a good position to score, they're going to score. That's what gets their points. Yeah. DK is supposed to be the focal point, and he's not been bad this year. It's just like you said, the volume has not been there like we expected.
Which was the whole entire hope was that Rodgers would give him the Devontae Adams treatment and just give him a ton of targets and make it work, and that's just not showed up.
No.
What's crazy to me is that with DK Metcalf, when I've watched him and he's had a good game, all they do is they throw slants over the middle to him. That's not hard. I know DK can run those routes. Arthur, he's giant. He's giant. Just have him run the slants over the middle. He's fast and he's giant.
I wonder if maybe not the Cowboys trading for DK, but if the Steelers had kept Pickens, I wonder what he would look like with Rodgers without DK there. I mean, Pickens has looked amazing this year, but it could just be the change of scenery. It could be the offense he's in. Maybe he would have chemistry with Rodgers. I don't know. It's interesting.
Rodgers is interesting to me in general because I think that he has to have a wide receiver that is 100% willing and 100% able to do exactly what he expects.
Yeah.
Because the second that they're off by even an inch, you see Rodgers just screaming all the time at just random players. And DK wasn't that guy because I don't know that he's able to mind meld with someone that way because he's not the greatest of route runners.
Yeah.
It was just a bad fit ultimately. And this is one of those bad fits that I think we could have seen coming, but everything.
It was a shiny okay, the Steelers finally have a wide receiver one again. That was the draw, and you just kind of get blinded by that.
But Mason Rudolph, I am excited. I'm also a hold for this one reason is if Mason Rudolph does come in because fracture in your left hand, I don't really know what sort of fracture Aaron Rodgers has, but when you're 41 and you got a fractured hand, that feels like a really bad setup to play the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, the only caveat there is that this is a playoff team potentially. Well, it really depends on how Rudolph plays. Yeah, it's a hold.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll move on to the next one, and this is the saddest one for me right now is Courtland Sutton. Over the last 6 games, he's averaging 9 points. And he had 5 points against Las Vegas and 10 points against Kansas City. He has just not been involved in this offense. Barely any targets. And I don't know if the issue is that he's getting the cornerback 1 treatment or if the issue is that Bo Nix. I feel like Bo Nix is doing too much.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much credit to Sean Payton, but I think that he's a good enough coach that Denver's going to have their bye week. I think they're going to do an efficient, maybe great job of fixing their offense. You would hope, And if that's getting Sutton more involved, I feel like that makes the most sense. But I think regardless, we're going to see a better Broncos offense. I think they're going to focus on getting their offense to gel during this bye week. So he's a hold for me for sure.
Okay. Okay. I'm so ready to punt him off my team just out of anger, but this is probably the right answer for it. Quinton Johnston.
I would not feel comfortable starting him or Keenan Allen the rest of the season.
Okay. Debo.
It really depends on Terry. Really depends on Terry.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so we're in the Debo's not better than basically a handcuff kind of.
I mean, I think if Terry's out and it's an okay enough matchup, I think he's startable. I'd start him over some guys. I feel like he's just like a Cortland Sutton with less upside, where he should be the wide receiver one on this team right now, but he's not getting the target volume. But he has the rushing upside, which Cortland doesn't. But at the same time, like it's a worse. It's like I'd rather have Cortland probably rest of the season, but I feel like they're kind of in very different players, but kind of in similar boats where there's a broken offense and they're not getting the targets that you would think they would.
Mm-hmm. The hard part for me is like, so Debo scored 20 against Miami and 12 or 13 against Detroit, right? But this is a team that's clearly not going to the playoffs. Their
Mhm.
quarterback is out. Like, do they keep ramping up, or whereas with Denver's going to have some games. It's going to come down to what seeding they have. They're going to
Yeah,
need to be competitive and win games that are going to be difficult. So you can't see Cortland just like disappearing. Whereas
yeah,
Debo, I can see him just disappearing. They just try to do other things. Not that he's going to get held out, but
yeah. I agree.
I didn't bring up Chris Rodriguez earlier, but I meant to actually include him on this list. He's not included in the top 30, but is Chris Rodriguez someone that you value at all going towards the playoffs?
No, but I will say I picked him up last week, last minute, and started him and got 9 points, and I was like, all right, that's cool. I'll take it.
Yeah, it's hard. That position has not provided any value to the Washington running back.
I I I did a bunch of mock drafts. I like Reddit. I'll post on Reddit a lot my mock drafts, and I did a mock draft 2 months ago when Bill Krosky Merritt was the hot thing, and I had the Commanders taking Jeremiah Love, and I think at that point it was like 18 overall, and I got flamed for it. They're like, we have Bill. Why would we ever take Jeremiah Love? Like, and I get the Commanders defense sucks, but there's no good running backs in Washington at all. Like Krosky Merritt is a solid RB2 at times. It can be, but no, they need a RB1 and they don't have it right now.
Yeah, and it's not like Austin Eckler's going to come back from a torn Achilles next year and like
Yeah.
anything. Like I would be shocked if he comes back at all.
Yeah.
So what do? Either trade for one, which would be a massive L for the GM after trading Brian Robinson away.
Exactly. That's
You can't understate how big of an L that would be for that GM. He's not going to want to do that. Or you draft one.
yeah.
So let's talk about TEs real quick. So we've got Kelsey first off, Kansas City Chiefs. He didn't look so bad this last game. But is he someone that you think is going to be a contending piece?
I don't think he's top 5 rest of the season. I mean, he's going to have top 5 weeks. I think that he's still a tight end 1. And I think my theory that I had at the beginning of the season where they're saving him for the playoffs, it doesn't hold as much weight. And I think it's more they're quote unquote saving him for the fantasy playoffs because the Chiefs they're not doing great. And they're going to have to rely on Kelsey sooner than we expected.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I think that he's maybe somebody you trade for, but really it depends on who you have as your tight end.
And I don't know for sure, but he did great against Denver this last week, right? So he was 9 for 91 in the touchdown. Denver, their weakest spot on the defense is likely their linebackers.
Yeah.
So I think that he might be someone that you just play based on these matchups of teams that aren't great against tight ends, but are great in other facets. You might want him there because the Chiefs know how to take advantage of matchups.
I would agree, but I also think if you have Kelsey, there's a likelihood that you don't have a better tight end on your roster.
True. Yeah, no doubt about that. Unless you're like someone who picked up Gadsden and also had Kelsey,
I'm actually so glad. I was going to ask, would you rather have Kelsey or Gadsden the rest of the season?
I'd rather have Gadsden. I like the upside of Gadsden overall.
I would take Kelsey. I would take Kelsey, but I think that's an interesting trade to discuss.
Yeah, well, the hard part with Gadsden is he's had 2 bad weeks in a row, right? So that looks bad, but again, it's against Pittsburgh and Jacksonville, and those are teams that haven't been necessarily gashed to get with since the tight ends a ton.
They have Patrick Queen, who's been all right, but they also have Devin Lloyd. So like the Jags linebackers are good.
Um, and but here's the hard part is I'm looking at like the fantasy playoffs for Gadsden. It's Kansas City, yuck. Dallas, okay, and then Houston, so that's pretty bad. Whereas with Kelsey, you got Chargers, Tennessee, Denver. That which is a better schedule for tight ends. No, the Chargers are bad matchup, I imagine.
I do want to throw Gadsden real quick in there. Is that like I mentioned not wanting to start QJ or Keenan Allen rest of the season? I would also throw Gadsden in there. I just think that unless he shows us and have a really good game, I'm not convinced he's a tight end one.
Fair. Yeah. What about Laporta? So Laporta's out. It's kind of a confusing timeline as far as his injury goes at this point. How do you feel about Laporta rest of the season? Especially considering I don't think you can just plug and play Brock Wright in his place. So you don't have a great replacement if you are waiting for him.
It's hard to say. I think that it could not be true, but it seems like him and Jameson Williams' value is inverse. Where like now that Laporta's out, we've seen Jameson with more volume, and tangentially, I think selling Jameson Williams high is very smart. I think Laporta is just someone that if you have him, you probably want to hold him, and if you are a team that is maybe iffy at tight end and your team's doing really well, I would consider trading for him.
Fair. So when he comes back, you can gather that because he had come on more so near. I don't want to call it the end of the season, but more recently he had been doing better than he had earlier on in the season. Early in the season, they didn't seem to be using him a ton in the passing game, and then he had 10 against Washington, 22 against Minnesota, and then a good game against Kansas City and a good game against Cincinnati, which he's a tight end, so of course he had a good game against Cincinnati, but neither here nor there.
I think that if you're in a position where your team is good and say you have like Harold Fannin and Gadsden and you're trying to decide between them each week, I would sell one of them or in something for Laporta.
Fair. This is a good time to sell Fannin too. I think he caught a touchdown last week, and he'll probably catch. You can sell that he's going against the Raiders this week, and the Raiders are bad against the tight end position, so you might want to make that trade.
Yeah.
Jake Ferguson also went against the Raiders, had a touchdown this last week. Ferguson has looked at times absolutely dominant, and then at times is kind of an afterthought in an offense that runs through its wide receivers. So, what do you value Ferguson as?
It's hard for me to get a grasp just because we haven't seen all three of the big guys at once. I hate to keep going back to Gadsden, but I feel like Ferguson and Gadsden, Cowboys have a much better offense, but I feel like they have a similar role where it's this tight end in this offense with a lot of good skill position players, a lot of mouths to feed, and he's going to have boom or bust weeks. So, I mean, he's startable if he's your tight end, probably, but he's probably someone I would sell high if I could get a better tight end.
Okay. Now he is currently ranked as tight end too, so you could probably sell him and get something for him at this moment. So I think you could even sell him for a non-tight end position and get something pretty solid.
That's what kind of where I was going. Where I was saying if you don't have to start him every week, you could sell him. I was gonna say sell high in the sense that like I wouldn't trade him for like a. I mean, it really just depends. Like I think he's probably better than Laporta rest of the season with the injury, but like I don't know. Maybe just be creative with it. I don't know.
If you can sell Ferguson for, let's say, I'm trying to think of an RB around the same range. Like, I'm feeling like a Quinshon Judkins or Kenneth Walker. You do that?
Not for Kenneth Walker. But I think if you're weak at a spot like running back and you need that upside play, then yeah, that's fair.
Okay, and those are the players we have. I'm gonna pop up this trade question we got in the chat here. So in full PPR, would you trade Jacobs, Metcalf, and Stafford for Jahmyr Chase and Zay Flowers? This person has other QBs that are good, and the only other good wide receiver is Rice with Sutton, Garrett Wilson on IR. Yeah, so you've got the Sutton Metcalf stack. Sorry, bud. That hurts. I feel that deep in my soul. Trust me. So Jacobs, Metcalf, and Stafford for Jahmyr Chase and Zay Flowers. My first question to you is, do you need to win this week?
Mm-hmm. There you
Because
go.
if you need to win this week, I don't know that you can. Because getting Jahmyr Chase, who's suspended, and then Zay Flowers to plug in a spot hurts. Losing Jacobs hurts, I think, a lot for your future playoff potential too. But Jahmyr Chase and Zay Flowers have higher upside than Metcalf for sure. And I don't value QBs super high as far as trades go. So Stafford is good, but you have Hurts and Burrow. So whatever.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I mean, you have JT and Gibbs, which is crazy. I guess it could be like an 8-man league, but the thing there is that you don't need Jacobs on this team because of JT and Gibbs. So getting Jahmyr Chase for Jacobs would very much benefit your team. Stafford's been really good, but you could get rid of him and still have Hurts and not miss him, and also you have Burrow. So it really is almost comes down to, is it DK Metcalf or Zay Flowers is almost how I view it. And I don't know.
I would go with the Jahmyr Chase and Zay Flowers portion of this currently.
Like you said, unless you need to win this week, but then also like Jacobs might not play and Jahmyr Chase isn't playing, so it's kind of a wash. True. But
True.
I think Burrow's going to come back. I think I would probably take Jahmyr Chase.
Yeah, I think you're going to upgrade your wide receiver slot. And if you're already playing JT and Gibbs, you'd be looking at like a flex downgrade. And only potentially because if you can just plug in Zay Flowers instead of Metcalf, which it's such a wash. It's so hard to guess because, some weeks we see Zay Flowers and the whole entire Baltimore offense look pretty bad. But then other weeks, I think Zay Flowers can pop off for, 25 points.
I do want to say also, Zay Flowers hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1, and DK's scored multiple touchdowns. So I think that we're inflating DK's value a little bit there. So I probably would rather have Zay Flowers than DK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think this is a unanimous. We're both on the side of Jahmyr Chase and Zay Flowers. So yeah,
seems worth it.
Yeah, and he said it's crazy. I got Gibbs in the first and JT in the second, which is awesome.
Totally,
amazing.
and JT
10-team league
here. Yeah.
Oh, JT has been insane. So enjoy that. And having those 3 running backs. Now, if you don't have any other running back depth, it's a little spooky, but still Jahmyr Chase. It's a wide receiver upgrade that you can't deny, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk about our picks. I really don't want to talk about my picks last week. Last week was just an awful time for me.
That was by far the worst week I've had, not just like on this podcast probably, but like in general. Making predictions at least.
Everything went really poorly after the 10 a.m. games. The 10 a.m. games hit, and I was like, okay, this is fine. Not so bad. And then everything went wrong. So I'll just go ahead and start with my last week. For my nuclear boy, I'm just going to go down the list if you're okay with that, and we can go on to the actual picks. So my nuclear boys are CeeDee Lamb. He did okay, 17.6. And then I had Jalen Waddle, who just had an unfortunately not good game against the Commanders, where everything seemed like it would line up for him. So that was a miss. My gas guys are Bo Nix. Clearly a miss. And then Jacoby Myers, who did fine. He didn't sink you, but he also didn't do great for your team. Gut checks, AJ Brown, same deal. Mm-hmm. He did fine. He had 11 targets, so I think the process was right. But unfortunately, the Eagles can't figure anything out on the air game. And then DJ Moore, that was so bad. That was awful, just the worst. 3.1 bad. So I actively hurt your team. If you didn't listen to my rant at the beginning of the thing, if you want to hear me just apologize over and over again in vaguely sarcastic ways, listen to the beginning of it. I do mean it, but I had to emulate Geno Smith. And then my sits were just god awful. I'm so sorry if anyone actually sat these players. Kyron Williams, he had 16.6. That was a miss. And then Derrick Henry had 20.2. That was a miss also. With Derrick Henry, I just couldn't imagine Lamar Jackson looking so awful.
The Henry was like it wasn't just the offense was off or bad. It was like that Henry had to make up for Lamar Jackson's like turnover.
Mhm.
They were turning the ball over so much. It's like it felt like it was inevitable.
Thanks, Ray Gaber.
Oh, appreciate
Happy to
you.
answer the questions. Yep, appreciate you for sure. Okay, Willie, why don't you go through your picks last week?
Okay, we were both pretty bad. So my first nuclear boys I thought were pretty obvious. And they didn't have awful games because they're great, but like Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson were just disappointing. I mean, Chase obviously spit on a guy, so he just had a rough game in general. And Justin Jefferson had the drops, and um, the vibes are not good in Minnesota, so that was a miss. Definitely my biggest hit of the week was Trayvon Henderson. I mean, he surpassed my expectations. Um, Missed on Woody Marks, and that really just kind of sold me off of him the rest of the season for most matchups. Really missed on Justin Herbert. That was I don't know that
It fell apart. It was
it
it was
was
that thing. It was either going to be they're going to come out and they're going to swing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to look like they have PTSD, and they look like they had PTSD.
it wasn't even mediocre. It was just like
Mm.
a pass for 81 yards. Like that that's crazy. Um that's like Bryce Young against the Broncos with Pat Surtain level yardage. Like that's just
If I had to like guess for the rest of time for Justin Herbert's career, the Jaguars are always going to be an issue for him.
yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
And then my gut checks, Kate Otten, he just didn't get involved. The targets, I believe, were there again last week. I want to check this really quick because that was my whole thing with Otten was I was like, he's getting the targets, like he's still definitely worth starting most weeks. I'll look at that in a sec. And then I had Trey Tucker as a gut check, and that worked out just because he got a touchdown, but he wasn't like, he wasn't super efficient. Um, and then unfortunately I said Panu Fryersmith with Patrick and Jonnu, but it was the Darnell Washington that was actually the tight end that went against the Bengals. So
It was the other one.
I was like, all right, I could have thrown him in there. And then looking here, Otten only had 5 targets, but that was almost a season low too. So
Yeah, two,
still,
two for
still
28.
fair.
That didn't go great, but such is life. If you haven't watched the interview that Darnell Washington recently did on his weight, it's pretty funny.
Hmm.
I would definitely check it out. It's on Amon Ra's podcast. I don't know the name of his podcast, unfortunately, just that he's the host.
Nice.
But it's a good interview. It's well worth watching because Darnell Washington seems to be a very likable guy.
I've never heard his voice, so I imagine he's got a very interesting voice too.
He's listed at 260 and he's not 260 is basically what it comes down to.
My controversial sits. I said the Seattle running backs, and that was I think that still was a fluky thing that Kenneth Walker looked so good. I said to sit Jordan Mason, and he wasn't terrible, but you would have been better starting Chris Rodriguez. So like, okay, whatever. And then I said to sit Tet McMillan, and he really surprised me. Bryce Young really surprised me. Those divisional NFC South games, I just don't know what to expect ever. So I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's hard, but we always bring up these names simply because if we don't, then it's really easy to just pretend like we've never gotten anything wrong,
Yeah.
and that's not the truth. This week was a bad one. It was one of those that was like, wow, okay, everything just flipped on its head at the end.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this next week. Let's talk about this next week because we can get some good things going. I think we've been a lot better than what you're seeing right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off. I'm gonna start off with my nuclear boys, and I'm gonna start off with Jahmyr Gibbs. This is a hard one to ever, say maybe you shouldn't play Jahmyr Gibbs, but you absolutely should play Jahmyr Gibbs. I closed my window that has my schedule, so I'm currently trying to buy time until I reopen it.
Giants.
So Jahmyr Gibbs against the Giants. The Giants are reeling. Jackson Dart's not in there. Jameis Winston is, but their defense has looked worse in the last few weeks. And Jahmyr Gibbs has just been tearing it up. He's going to tear it up again. He's going to do great against the Giants. And I don't think that the Giants have the firepower to stay with the Lions at all. So the run game is going to be king here. So Jahmyr Gibbs is my first one. And then I'm going to go to Justin Jefferson. So Justin Jefferson got really frustrated during this last game. And that's, frustration doesn't immediately lead to better things ahead. But this is against the Packers, and the Packers defense hasn't looked amazing. Like, they've looked a lot worse than I think anyone could have guessed they would at this point. So I think this is the get right game for Justin Jefferson, because the Packers are going to score points. The Vikings are going to need to score points as well. And Aaron Jones isn't good enough on the ground to be the lone source of their output. My basic theory here is that Justin Jefferson has to get right. And if he's this mad, he's going to get right.
If we keep putting him in Nuclear Boys every single week, eventually we're going to hit. That's just the way I see it. God,
Eventually.
I would love the Packers to lose this weekend. That would be so cool.
The Vikings could do it. I mean, it's a divisional game, and they're a mad team right now.
The Packers do not. They have the reverse luck of the Bears, where they're losing to walk-off field goals, and the Bears are winning on those. My Nuclear Boys this week, I got 3. One is pretty simple. It's Derrick Henry. He looked great last week. He proved that he's still an efficient part of his offense. Lamar Jackson maybe has an ankle injury, or like he's trending towards being limited. I don't know, but I think they're going to stick with what worked last week, Derrick Henry. And against the Jets defense, as opposed to the Browns, I expect Henry to have an even better game. And then these two, I consider putting in gas guys, but you know what? I'm going to go with my gut and put him in Nuclear Boys. I'm actually walking back on what I just said about not trusting NFC South divisional matchups, but whatever. I'm going to put Chris Olave in my Nuclear Boys. I think that we saw Tat McMillan explode against the Falcons last week. I think the Falcons are going to be playing, they're not going to be playing well necessarily, but I think they're going to keep up with the Saints. So the ball is going to get passed a lot. I think the Saints are coming off the bye and have seen how important Olave is to his offense. The Saints have no run game. I just think it's Olave is right for another huge game. So I'm predicting this week. And my last guy is Jalen Hurts. He looked great against the Cowboys week 1, and I think he's due for a big game. And I think that we can see him, maybe doing more with his legs this week than we have recently, just because the offense, it's different every week. And last week it was passing and he didn't run much. And now let's just go back to, let's just flip.
How do you think that I was going to say this is a Quinnen Williams revenge game. It's totally not. Same green color, different team.
Close.
But do you think Quinnen Williams hurts Jalen Hurts? Gosh darn it. Do you think Jalen Williams caps Jalen Hurts upside?
Not enough. I think he would cap Barkley's a lot more.
Okay, fair. So let's talk gas, guys. I'm going to start off with one that I know you're not going to like much. Kenneth Walker III against the Titans. The coaches come out and said that they need to get him more involved. I don't believe in that for full season long terms. I do believe in that for this week, because the Seahawks are going to boat race the Titans almost immediately. These are not the Rams. They've boat raced all the teams that are supposed to be worse than them. I think they'll do it again with the Titans. I don't think there's any issues here. And then that's a perfect time to give Kenneth Walker the more volume that he wants,
and to sell him high.
Yeah, exactly. And then the second one is a matchup that I've gone back to time and time again, and I will go back to it once more. And that is Hunter Henry of the Patriots, the tight end against the Bengals. This is a tight end that is involved in the passing game. He almost had a touchdown last week if he didn't get batted down at the line. He had managed to break free, and the target was going right towards him. And who knows what could have happened this week against the Bengals. I don't want to say he's going to explode, but I think he's going to have a great game, especially by tight end standards.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect at least 1 touchdown, but I think there is upside for 2 touchdowns in a game where they just don't pay attention to tight ends. And this Bengals defense, it can't be understated. Like, the Cowboys offense is bad, but the Bengals defense, it doesn't matter what situation they're in. Yeah. They cannot get a stop.
And they were coming off the bye last week, and they were abysmal again.
And they knew they needed to get stops, and they just could not even imagine trying to make someone, not score a touchdown on long plays. So, yeah, you want that combo when you're going against the defense. Those are my gas guys.
I got 3 gas guys again here. I just couldn't decide. So my first gas guy is someone that's been trending up in recent weeks, and I think it's going to be a shootout. And I think this quarterback is going up against a secondary's gotten better since trading for Kyle Duggar. Still not a great secondary. Anyway, I think it's Caleb Williams. And on paper, the Steelers matchup isn't the greatest, but I think that we're going to see, maybe this is just a never gut thing, but I think Caleb is going to put up a decent amount, like up to 20 points, just because he's been trending up past couple weeks. And I think we're see more passing touchdowns against the Steelers than he has with other teams recently. I also do want to put Quinshon Judkins in my gas guys because I think he's had just a few down weeks and he is a get right game now against the Raiders. Really enough said. I think that Shadeur he maybe is okay in his debut, but I think that it would be wise for Stefanski to lean on the run to get Shadeur's confidence up, and that's something you can do against the Raiders. And then my last one, this is just another gut feeling based on how I think the Colts might reshape their offense a little bit after the bye, is I think that getting Tyler Warren more involved makes sense from a playmaking standpoint. If the Chiefs are expecting the run, that's going to be their focus. I mean, that screwed them in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. So if they go up against the Colts expecting the run and don't prepare for the pass, I think Warren could have a great game.
Oh, I love that. I'm relying pretty heavily on both Judkins and Warren. So if they can both do great, oh man, I'd love it.
Nice.
Let's talk gut check starts. So my first gut check start is someone who has been really disappointing. And if you drafted him, you hate him. But this week you're gonna like him, Darnell Mooney. So this is the Falcons, Darnell Mooney, the same guy who has been basically nothing this whole entire season. But Kirk Cousins is starting this week. Kirk Cousins does like Mooney. We've seen it in the past. And London's out. So he becomes a de facto wide receiver one. There's actually no other wide receivers on the Falcons. That's not exactly true, but there's no one that you could even really name off the top of your head. Like, who do you guys know? Casey Washington? Do you know David Sills? I do know Jamal Agnew from his cool Jacksonville Jaguars days because he's really fast, and Agnew is a cool name. And then Kadarius Hodge.
Is Nick Nash still there? The San Diego State wonder?
Not as far as I can tell.
All right.
I've watched the games. And I haven't seen him either. So, and then my other gut check. Get ready for this one, guys. And yes, I am saying you should play this over some other established starters. Is Shadeur Sanders. But hear me out here. Hear me out here. He's going against the Raiders. And if there's one thing that always works against the Raiders every single time is a quarterback in their first start for a team. Every single time it works. And the Raiders don't have a pass rush at all. Max Crosby's the only guy who can get a pass rush going, and it's not enough to just have one dude who can do this. So Shadeur Sanders is going to actually have the time in the pocket that he seems to require to do these passes. And I think you get to see what he's actually capable of this week, and I think he'll surprise people. Now, this isn't someone who I'm expecting to have a good season after this. This is a very specific scenario.
It's first start. There's a beginner's luck in there, too.
Mm-hmm. And again, the Raiders over and over and over ad nauseum. This is like the Bengals with tight ends, is the Raiders with quarterbacks in their first start.
Okay.
They cannot figure out how to stop them. They will give up ridiculous numbers and make them look good, and then they'll go get a contract somewhere else the next year. So
maybe not in Sanders' case, but
yeah, not in Sanders' case, but
but he might. I could see him putting up points.
Yep. Okay, so go ahead. You got your gut checks.
My gut checks this week. The first one is a guy I picked up in lieu of Bo Nix's bye, and it's someone that quietly, you might already know who I'm talking about, but I do want to pull up his stats because he's quarterbacking a team that is just not great offensively. But his stats since becoming the starter are 20, 19, 24, 19, 21. His lowest game is 19 points. And last week he set a record. I do want to mention this. He set a record for most completions ever in an NFL game. Like that, not just like 47 completions out of 57 attempts. It's Jacoby Brissett. Like he is low-key playing out of his mind right now. He actually is playing I wouldn't say the Cardinals' offense is efficient, but he's playing in such a way that he's protecting the ball. He's passing a ton, and he's throwing passing touchdowns. He's had multiple passing touchdowns in every single start. He's had every single start, and he played against the Packers, the Seahawks. He's played against tough defenses, and he's just put up numbers consistently. So, I mean, if he goes off this week, I might start him over Nick's in the future. Like he's looking really, really good. And then I love that with the Trey McBride stack.
Yeah.
And then my last guy, I got to rag on the Bears a little bit here, but I think that regardless of if Mason Rudolph spreads the ball around a little bit more, I think that we can trust Jalen Warren, or if he's out, Kenneth Gainwell, to like just kind of alleviate some of the pressure off the starting QB. You know, if it's Rudolph in his first start or Rodgers in his hand, particularly if it's Rodgers in his wrist or hand, I think the run game is going to be a big factor in this game. Who are your controversial boys?
Okay, so my controversial sits, one of them is going to go a little bit against Jacoby Brissett, but I don't necessarily think Jacoby Brissett is a bad start anyways. And that is Michael Wilson. We just saw Michael Wilson completely explode against the 49ers. And I don't expect him to do that again at all. This is against the Jaguars defense that has been fairly good against the pass. I like Trey McBride a lot in this, and I don't know if Marvin Harrison's going to be in this week. I think there's a chance, but who knows with an appendectomy.
I think he was just ruled out.
Oh, was he? Okay, so that's easy. But I don't think Michael Wilson has the upside he had last week at all. However, Trey McBride is going to do great. And you're going to enjoy it a lot anyways. So don't hear what I'm not saying. That this whole offense isn't bad. I'm just saying Michael Wilson is not the guy who you want him to be this week.
Because it could be Greg Dortch this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I would expect it to be pretty much anyone else, even if it's passing to the running back over and over again. Like there's opportunities against this Jags defense, but I don't think the only wide receiver you have that posed a threat last week is the guy. They're going to see that. And they're going to know, and this defense for the Jags is the best part of that team currently. They're going to figure out how to stop him. My second is Michael Pittman Jr. of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, they did go on bye, and they did retool it. I don't like him going against this Chiefs team because the Chiefs are probably going to try to limit him of any of the wide receivers because they'll be focused on Jonathan Taylor, and then they'll probably have to ultimately decide one of these pass catchers to shut down. And Michael Pittman Jr. seems to be the pass catcher you want to shut down if you beat the Colts.
Yeah, because he's the red zone guy. Like Warren has been consistently great and gotten touchdowns, but like Pittman has been the red zone guy. So I agree. I think if the Chiefs pivot away from the run defense, they're going to be shutting down Pittman in the end zone is going to be their biggest tactic.
And so I also like the Tyler Warren start in this case because if they're shutting down Pittman, that means Warren's going to eat him up a little bit. But yeah, so Pittman, I don't expect the 2 points that we've seen from him in the past, but I really just don't expect any sort of blow up game. I don't think you're going to love starting him by any means.
Yeah, and Steve Spagnuolo, if you're listening to this, don't think about Tyler Warren. Don't take our advice. My two sits is one guy who, similar to Michael Wilson, if you look at it on paper with no context, it would be kind of crazy to bench him. But this is a team that this guy put up a trio of touchdowns last week, 2 rushing touchdowns against a great team, and the team he's playing this week is a team that got embarrassed by the run like they haven't really at all this season. So I expect that the Rams will 100% shut down the Bucs RB2, Sean Tucker. So under no circumstances would I start Sean Tucker this week. I will eat my words if it's wrong, but I will double, triple, quadruple down. Sean Tucker is not going to have a game like he did last week.
Yeah.
And then lastly, this is a little controversial because he has been boomer bust, but he's looked better in recent games. But I think Jake Ferguson could likely mirror what he did week 1 against the Cowboys, which is do nothing. And I think that he's maybe due for a bust game. And I think that going up against the Eagles, they're a tougher defense. And I don't see Jake Ferguson being the guy that's going to save them in this divisional game because he wasn't last time.
Sick. Okay, so those are our picks for the week. If you're looking for them, I do have them in the description of this video. So if you want to go back and see who they are, just check out the description. They're listed out for you. Willie, we've gone overtime because of the long segment in the middle. I'm ready to end it with the picks. What about you?
I'm ready to end it. But
that's the thing about these late night pods, man. You get to a point and you're just like, okay, we gotta go. Yeah. If you listened, appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Good luck this week. Otherwise, doink out.
Doink out.